Welcome to Connecting Greeks, a streaming comedy show and podcast designed to explore and enhance Greek culture around the world. Join hosts Angelo, Adi, and Foti as they bring you fun and interesting guests from all walks of Greek life. Grab a kafedaki and join us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another, now I say this every time, a fantastic episode, but today is truly an episode that is dear to my heart because I am a super fan of our guest. He's an amazing, I'm going to say it, legendary. My pop culture upbringing involved this man in so many ways. Movies, TV, so many things. There's one movie that I quoted him nonstop to the point where people were just yelling at me, just quit it. And such a super fan, such an amazing performer. And before I get to our guest, let me introduce my co-host, Foti Stamos. Hi, Foti.
Well, where's my introduction?
No, you have no introduction anywhere near that. Sorry.
Wow. No. You know what? I'm equally excited, and I'm going to double down on everything you just said about our guests. But everything's great here out in Boston.
Awesome. And then we have all the way on the other side of the country another guy who's a performer and who I have major respect for. His name, in case you don't know, Angelo Tsarouchas. Hello, Angelo.
Hello, Forte. Hello, Adi.
That's true.
How are you, my friend?
I'm in a Montreal state of mind, so I put Montreal in the background today.
Good for you.
And there's another reason why I did that today. Respect to Canada. And I know Adi. When I said to Adi the guest we're going to bring, and he goes, "You know him?" And I said, "I do." And he was like, "Wow." And what I'm going to say, I have to admit, our guest has been in films a lot. There's a lot of stuff here we can cover. And he's an alumni from Second City, which is he's got a comedy background, and he's a great actor. I'm not going to give you all the things he's done because there's so many here.
We don't have all night.
He's worked with Tom Hanks. He's been on Seinfeld. He's been Forever Night. There's a lot. And then, of course, we're going to get to the John Hughes, the iconic, and all the other stuff. And he comes originally from London, Ontario, Canada, and he makes his home in Los Angeles. I got a little frog in my throat. Welcome to Connecting Greece. Welcome, John Kapelos. Good to have you here, John. Welcome to our show.
Welcome,
so you guys don't have all night? Is that what you're saying?
I do.
I actually have all night, John. I will stay on as long as you're down.
John, normally John, good to have you. You look great. It's been a pandemic. It's been... We've been going through a shit show for a year.
A Greek word.
And just up. How do you say shit show in Greek? Skato cinema.
Right.
Skato parastasi would be in Greek, right?
That too.
And here's the best part, just to update everybody what's going on. So in California, we had the worst amount of COVID. And now we are the forefront. We're ahead of it so much that we're going to open. And Canada today shut down for a month. I don't know if you heard this, John. Canada's completely shut down. They're closing the borders. And I don't know what happened. Canada was way ahead of the story. But anyway, we wish all our best to our friends and family in Canada. And when I first moved to LA about 16 years ago, I got to go to one of the Greek film festivals, and I saw John. I saw you, and I had to go and say hi to you. And I went up to you, and you couldn't be nicer. And we've hung out a few times, and you got a great sense of humor. And the work you've done, and John, when I told Adi, and I'm going to let Adi go, when I said that we're going to bring you on, Adi got excited. And recently, and I'm going to start with this because a friend of mine has a T-shirt. And I know the story to this, but I want everybody else there. And the T-shirt says, "She's into Malakas." Dino, right? She's into Malakas, right? And that's an iconic thing. And John, tell us the story about that, because you have a lot to do with that line, if I remember correctly, right? On the
First
John Hughes thing.
In contravention of some universal copyright thing right there. Well, careful. Basically, when we were doing that scene, we shot that scene here in LA. It was a big studio. We were shooting at Universal. And John Hughes said to me, I mean, I was the Greek owner of this black bar. And he said, I forget exactly how it came about, but we were tossing about for words that I could use, and I threw out Malacca. I pitched him the word Malacca, and he asked me what it was, and I told him, and basically that it was a Greek jagoff, and sort of in Chicago terms, and the rest is sort of film history. My mother fucking hated it.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, I got a lot of grief for that. She was really seriously unhappy with it. I mean, for the most part, she was pretty enamored with what I did, but this one is something that she said, "Why would you choose that word?" and everything like that. But
that was classic. When I was doing my intro, that's the line that I always like. I was, younger little kid, and I would quote that nonstop. I thought it was the most brilliant thing in the world to hear Greek in a mainstream movie in the 80s. I mean, these movies that you were in, and I want to ask you about the John Hughes stuff, but these movies you were in, these were huge. These were culture, like for our age group, they were like, there was nothing bigger. When we saw these movies, we would go to school and we'd be all excited and we'd be like, talking about it. We'd be like quoting these and the she's into Malakas. I was like, that's Greek. He speaks Greek. That's a Greek actor. That's a Greek guy.
Where'd you grow up?
Boston.
Never heard of it. What part of Boston?
So it's actually connected in a small area, but it's called Somerville. It's right next to Cambridge, which you probably heard of, Harvard, MIT, all that stuff.
Yeah. My mother was born in Chelsea and raised in Watertown. So.
What?
Oh, wow.
So
no way.
I know Boston fairly well. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, there's a good connection, guys. I didn't know that, John.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all.
I went to Harvard, and my aunts, all my family, my great uncles had a spa called the Pembroke Spa on Mass Ave and Pembroke Avenue. I mean,
wow.
John,
that's very close.
And my grandmother lived in Brookline, and
oh my God,
that's where my family, my mother's family is from. My father was born in Greece, and then came to Canada when he was very young, when he was 11. And my uncle, his brother, older brother, was born in Greece but came to Canada. But a convoluted story, because in those days, a lot of times people would come over. Like my grandfather came over and lived in Chicago.
Yeah.
My grandmother came to visit him, and on the way back to Greece, my uncle was born, and then the rest of the kids were born back in Greece. So one of those stories.
That's incredible. I actually did not know that, and that's why he's so cool, Angelo, because he has roots in Boston.
There you go.
There you go. But he has that kind sensitivity from Canada.
Yeah, it's an odd mix. My Boston family is, it's pretty deep. My grandfather, who I'm named after, came over to Boston in the 1880s, 85, and he had he was a chocolate guy. All these guys were in the chocolate business and confection business, and he, was in that business. So,
John, I there's got to be a lot of Kapelos in the Boston area, because I went to high school with a John Kapelos back in the late 80s. So,
where'd you go to school?
So I grew up in Rosendale, and I went to West Roxanne.
That's my cousin John. Yeah, I know John. He lives in suburban DC now.
Yeah, I lost track after high school, but I did go to high school with a John Kapelos.
Well, those are my cousins. My Aunt Fanny Kapelos owned a brew house in Harvard Square. I mean, they had a bar in Harvard Square. Yeah, these are my dad's second cousins.
Okay.
And
wow.
I never really got close to them. I mean, I keep in touch with them and some of them. But most of my Kapelos family is in Canada. Like Ange probably knows this, that my cousin's daughter, Vashi's now on CBC TV, and she's a big anchor type on CBC.
Oh, cool.
She has a big show in Canada on CBC.
Yeah, she does
a political show. She's really good.
Power and Politics. It's a daily show, and she interviews all the prime minister, etc. And we're very proud of her. And like my cousin's family is mostly in Toronto and like that. But I'm talking too much.
This really is connecting Greeks, isn't it? And we got you guys. I'm just sitting back now, and it's finding out. Oh, and it's so. But John, I got to ask you.
But the thing about Greeks, honestly, is it's all these little villages. I mean, growing up as I did in London, Ontario, and I hear about Detroit and Chicago and Buffalo and Toronto and Hamilton and Guelph, and then you'd hear about somebody who lived in Bronxville, New York, et cetera, et cetera. What were we going to say, Ange?
No, I was going to say it's interesting how, because when you started off, it's funny because, bless you, it's funny starting off in entertainment business because, it's your body of work speaks for itself. And I was so happy because, guys, about 3 years ago, the movie The Shape of Water, which won Best Picture, and John played the manager. He played an Armenian man who runs the theater. Remember the theater where they're at?
The landlord.
And that film won Best Picture, Best Academy Awards with Guillermo del Toro. Great. And I was so happy. My wife's Armenian. And when you played an Armenian, and I know you've played many characters, of course, Greek-based, Italian, Armenian, regular WASP, whatever.
Regular.
I say regular now. I know white people are regular now. It's not even
awesome.
He's not a regular guy. And it's so funny that, but what I found interesting, did you find, John, because I'm a stand-up background. I know you come from an improv background, and you were in Chicago at the famed Second City. So, did you find, John? Did you find from that? Did you derive, because of course acting comes after, but improv is something, especially at Second City. What was that experience like, and how did that move your career after being in Chicago?
Well, improv to me just gives you the freedom to speak and to be able to speak in a character. I mean, for me, you're a very funny stand-up, and that's what you do. And always the differentiation at Second City, it sounds a bit wonky, and talking about comedy is a little bit like talking about swimming. I'd rather do it. But yeah. Or sex or whatever. But in this case, we're talking about acting. The thing is, for me, it's really a guy like you says funny things, and a guy like me says things funny, and that's the difference. I like that.
Yeah,
and, you have things that you say that are really fucking sensationally funny, and whereas I'm best, I think, when I'm locked in a wheelhouse or in a wheelhouse of a character where I can play around, and then that gives me the parameters of doing something. If I'm playing, I grew up, imitating my uncles and my cousins and everybody around me to great effect. And then when I started pissing them off, I realized I was hitting close.
Right.
And, as a teenager, there were certain relatives that stopped talking to me because of the way I made fun of them.
Classic.
And then that just happened. And like my uncle I skated a lot with him. And they always say that you make fun of what you love and sometimes what you hate, and sometimes what you love and hate is kind of the same thing. Particularly if it's your mother or your father, because as a Greek kid, I love my mother, I hate my mother. You're always vacillating between these emotions of extreme emotions. And also that's just the way it is growing up. And in Bernie at Second City, what they taught us is to make fun of your own. Don't make fun of the other. Don't victimize other people. Victimize yourself, or at least, the funny situations in Second City is when you're laughing at a scene and you go, "Oh God, that guy with that woman is like, what an asshole! Look at the way he's behaving." You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of me. and that's when it's the funniest, is when it's self-revelatory. And you're not pointing at other people going, "Look at that asshole, with the big ass," or "Look at that person over there." That big ass person is me. I'm the big ass family guy. And it's more funny. It's funnier and much more fun and exciting, ultimately, if you can laugh at yourself. Because I don't know about you guys, but my parents got through a lot of stuff. Both of them went through the Depression, et cetera, and the war and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And had gallows humor, you know. I worked with this actor several years ago, this old guy. I forget his name now, and at the end of the day, he said to me, John, there are two types of people in this world. And I go, oh, no. He said, this guy's going to come out with the most anti-Semitic thing in the world. And I go, okay, what two types of people, guys? Those with a sense of humor and those without.
Yeah.
And I thought, if you're going to crack the world into two, that is a good place to start. And I found growing up, for the most part, there were people that could take it and people that couldn't, And
so true.
And sometimes, even with my relationship, I give out as good as I get, and then she gives me stuff back, and all of a sudden, like I'm getting the same stuff, and I'm not taking it. It was like, ha ha ha. So you've got to be able to take it too, At
the same time. But John, you make a good point, because I've always said this, especially when it comes to comedy, and I find Greeks, and you hit it on the head, but the thing is, Greeks like to make fun of people, but don't like to be made fun of.
Right? When I was in Chicago at Second City, I had a very, very, very negative interaction with the Greek community.
Wow.
And I have to say, guys, honestly, I'm not a Greek guy. I mean, I've always skated on the edge of the community. I was a bit of a hippie growing up. I was never the good Greek boy that, they would talk about John Kapelos. John Kapelos, he had a cigarette the other day at the London Cafe. I would shit in a restaurant. I'd come home and there'd be a doctor there looking at my arms, waiting to see if I was a heroin addict. No kidding. I mean, I had experiences with my parents. My parents were so straight. There was one time I came home and they had a doctor waiting there because they saw me having a cigarette downtown, London, Ontario. And when I got home, my mother had a family doctor. Said, "Can he look at your arms?"
I mean, we're laughing now, but
yeah, it's very traumatic. But now it's funny.
I mean,
you can, and they were so far off that the problem is my parents were just so, we were smoking pot and doing hash and listening to fucking Led Zeppelin. We weren't shooting heroin. I mean, for God's sake. They were so square it was funny,
Yeah.
Right.
I think we all share that kind of experience. Like if my parents knew half the stuff I was doing, they would have freaked out. But now I look back, I'm like, it was no big deal. But
then again, I have friends and people that I know that had parents who were drug addicts, and thank God my parents were like solid over the hill. Truly, who were really in love with one another, couldn't get any daylight between them. I mean, they made decisions. There was never, ever trying to separate them in any argument.
So was there a point that you said, Mom, Dad, I want to be an actor? Was it like something like that, or was it something that gradually happened to you and they just kind of, you're like, oh, I'm going to be on this show and blah, blah, blah?
Well, in retrospect, I mean, the sort of the thumbnail sketches, and I'm the youngest of three, and my brother and sister are incredibly overly achieving academically, and my father pushed us all academically. And excuse me, at the end of the day, my brother and sister kind of, in my opinion, did everything that my parents wanted any children to do. So I said, well, I'm going to try this. And my dad, when I told him I wanted to be an actor when I was around, 19 or 20, maybe 20 years old, 21, I dropped out of university. And it's a long story that I've told us several times. But for the most part, what happened was I told him I wanted to be an actor. And he was pretty cool in a lot of ways. He said, and I'll be honest, he said, you're good looking. Do something with your looks. And he said, you're smart. He said, I'd prefer you be a lawyer. He wanted me to go to law school. He said, be a hell of a lawyer. But he was sweet about it. He said, don't be too smart on the way don't be too cocky. But if you want to act, I'll give you a year. And that was really kind of him. I said, okay, I'll take a year. And he said, if after a year you don't get a job, and it was really, complimentary because he'd seen me in a couple of high school plays, and, he knew that I had a bit of an attitude and panache. And it was, I think back on it, he wasn't that uncool about it. But he said, listen, you do it for a year. And if after a year you don't get it, something. But then he said to me something that I think was more fundamental. He said, listen, when your mother and I went to New York a few years ago, and we, every waiter, every bartender was an actor.
Yeah.
He said, if you're going to get a job, if you're going to be an actor, get a job acting. So that's what made me sort of look around and look at Second City and say, okay, well, they're paying you. So at that time they were paying $20, $25 a gig, but that was $25. Yeah. They were paying you,
Yeah.
So that's how I got into that, and that's another historia.
That's actually like very cool. I mean, as Greeks, we've heard stories of so many people and how they got into what they're doing. That's actually very cool of your dad to not, just be like, you're not going to be an actor, blah, blah, blah.
In retrospect, I think what he was smart at, or he was wise at, is that he knew me enough to know that he had to bargain with me. If he said, no, you're not going to do this, we were kind of estranged for about 7-8 months before that. So we hadn't really been talking much. And so that wasn't a pleasant experience for either one of us.
Yeah.
And, there are certain types of people that can really keep anger well. Neither my father and I could. It would be better for us to be getting along than not getting along.
Yeah.
So there was too much, what's the word? The Greek word, I'm blanking on it now. But anyway, there's just too much grinya. That's the word.
Yeah, that's a good word. I love that word.
Keep it up in the air. And so we figured that out. And then, the fact of the matter is, and my father died in 1980. So before I actually got into the movie.
Oh, wow.
So he never really saw me in any of the films and stuff.
Oh, man, because I was so going to just ask, like, how did he feel when you, like, were in these, like, epic movies that, like, were, like, culturally, like, huge? I'm sorry.
John, I want to add to that. So, John, because it's interesting that it sounds to me like what your father was saying a lot was, if you're going to do it, like, be good at it. I think the Greeks are more.
That was also. I think that's a. Sorry, but that's a bit of a cliche that I think that. Well, if you're going to do it, be the best. I mean, that was really, and we make fun of it, but my brother, sister, and I. My dad wouldn't say good night, have a good night's sleep, and everything. All right, good night. Remember, the key to success is work. WORK. Every effing night, he'd say that.
Yeah,
so it wasn't, and he was kind of a weird hybrid because he was in the Canadian Air Force. So when he came over when he was 11, 12 years old, so his Canadianness was very kind of, get up in the morning and, brace yourself, put the cold water in your face and go out and do your, there was kind of a little bit of Royal Canadian Air Force, 1941 about it.
Right. He's a military man.
Yeah. And, we love that about him. And I also think that he was a realist in that, a lot of parents, a lot of the kids that I grew up with had what I would call astronaut parents. Their parents were like, really younger and, they'd come up in these sleeker cars and they'd all be, having parties on Friday nights. And then I found out that all these parents were having affairs and this and that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, sometimes when you're in the moment, you're like, oh my God, my old school Greek parents are so lame. They're so this, so that. But then you get older and you see the reality of what happened with other people. And then you build like all that much more respect for your parents and what they actually did, like in your upbringing. And I think, a lot of Greeks have that story and it sounds like you have that story too. And it's really cool. Like I have so much respect for in a lot of ways. It's like, oh my God, I hated my mom, my dad so many times, but now in my age, I'm like, they really did.
I say this and I say this with love, but my mother was a cop. I mean, I would come home at midnight. I mean, we would have strict curfews. And I was, I smoked cigarettes for the most part and would have drinks, beers and this and that. And she'd inspect my hands.
That's hilarious.
Well, you know what? She cares. She cares about her son. I mean, maybe she could have done it a different way, but in the end, it's about her caring.
Well, I
about
get the
you.
same treatment now. So,
So instead of asking you about the first time your dad, and again, I'm sorry that he wasn't alive to see what you've accomplished. How about your mom? The first time you were like on the big screen.
well, my mother's a different story. She's kind of she loved it, and she loved all the movies. Her favorite movie, I think, was Roxanne, and she didn't like when I swore, and she said I sometimes mumbled in the movies. I spoke a little too quickly, and I could enunciate a little bit better. The first movie I did was 16 Candles, and I think my first line was, the guys that thought we had to get married, but I think we feel pretty stupid. What was it? The guys that, it was a hard line to say, and I had to say, the guys that think I'm at the altar and I go, bet the guys that thought we had to get married feel pretty stupid right about now, huh, Padre?
I remember that.
I think that's the line. I guess the guys that thought we had to get married feel pretty stupid right about now, huh, Padre? Because she says something about how she's having her period.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I had to say that line, and I had to say it real fast, and Hughes wanted it with a bit of a laugh and an attitude. So I guess the line is, right, I guess the guys that thought I had to get married feel pretty stupid right about now, huh, Padre? Now, that's a mouthful, right?
Yeah.
And my family was like, that line, what was it? Guess the guys had to about Padre? What was that? This guy's had to see about now, right about Padre? It's like, it's like, it's not enough I'm in the fucking movie.
They start correcting you.
I mean,
my mother was very, very like enunciate. Like,
but I mean, are they aware that being in a movie is very, very structured? Everything is planned out. Everything is very.
One of my family members asked me once, like, why didn't you apply to get into a Spike Lee movie? I said, apply to get in a Spike Lee movie. There's an application I make out.
So, John, you had a great relationship. Obviously, John Hughes loved you because he had you in all those those great roles that everybody knows you from. I mean, you're not just defined by the John Hughes films because you work with Steve Martin, you work with Tom Hanks. But the reality, when you played Carl the janitor in Breakfast Club,
oh man,
that was, to me, you want to end up like me. I think it was so many people. I still watch that movie.
Yeah.
And that was the whole idea of, Molly Ringwald and not Judd Apatow, Judd Nelson and
Anthony Michael Hall,
Emilio Estevez and Ali Sheedy. And they're in the school, and Bender. I'm watching you guys. And you still know, like, Weird Science, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, fucking
these are for. I say this quite often, but I think it's true. When I was growing up in the '60s, just the click before, we had 45 records, and that's why I know songs. I hear a song on the radio, and it's like, oh my goodness, it's like so much in terms of like. And like we used to play music over and over. You guys had VHS tapes or beta tapes. And I think the generation so that stuff was, when I watched a movie in like 1967, that was it. You never got to see it again because it disappeared.
Right.
But then you get to see movies that's like, oh, you can videotape it and this and that. So I think that had a huge thing to do with the cultural ability of Hughes to be sort of played and replayed and played and replayed and sort of that thing, and also kind of the whole, I hate to use the word, but zeitgeist of, kids going to school. I mean, for me, I sound like an old fart now, but I just never forget that day in February 1964 when the Beatles played Ed Sullivan, and that Monday morning, all we were talking about was the Beatles. And I was in third grade, and that's all we were talking about, or grade 3 in Canada. And so here you go, with the thing about those movies, and also, you're not talking about Porky's. You're not talking about some other really shit films from the 80s. You're talking about some other film. You're talking about these films because Hughes, quite simply, cut to the quick, never talked down to teenagers.
Yes.
The teenagers, and in a sense, the Hughes adults in the movies were kind of like the adults in the Charlie
Wah, 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 wah.
Charlie Brown. Yeah, they were kind of, and like if they were real characters, they were kind of obtuse and kind of like, pardon me, guys, my allergies, whatever.
Yeah, today was bad. Today was really bad.
It's bad because of the weather here in LA.
Anyway,
now, John, when you worked on, because you played Jerry's accountant on Seinfeld.
Oh my God, classic!
The classic, and they think you're a drug addict, right? And I just saw it recently, and because you pop up a lot. I mean, when you've done as much work as you've done, you pop up in films and you pop up in television series and stuff. But what was that experience? Because we have a mutual friend with Fred Stoller. Remember, we did his podcast. Me and John did Fred's podcast.
Oh, Freddie, yeah.
Goes, Angelo, do you know Fred? Do you know John Kapelos?
Yeah, Fred
Stoller.
He's funny. He's not from New York. He's not from New York.
That's how he talks.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, the funny thing about Seinfeld basically was I think it was a Thursday that they asked me to, in them days you would get a fax. So I got, like at noon or something, I get a call from my agent. We're going to fax you over the sides. Can you get over to MTM Radford, which is CBS Radford?
Right.
And they want you to read for this Seinfeld. And I had really long hair. What was left of my hair was long.
Yeah.
And I had sort of grown it, and it was sort of my unemployment hair. So I go over there at like 2:30 in the afternoon with the sides, the crinkly paper sides, and go in and audition. And they come out. I come out of the audition, and they say, "Go sit over here." And then they come out about 5 minutes later and says, "Can you Can you hang for a network read through at 5:00?" At which point I knew that I got the gig. I said, "Yeah." Said, "We're going to go talk to your agent." Boom, boom, boom. So that's how it happened. Boom, I was in.
Wow.
And then we started rehearsing the next day, and then we shot the next Friday. So how they do these things. You do network reader. I don't know whether you know how they do these things.
Yeah, I don't.
I've been in a couple, but not as many as you, John. But by
but I mean, the standard format for these sitcoms is you rehearse, and at a certain point in the afternoon, all the suits come in, they sit in the thing, and you do a read through. It's kind of a ridiculous charade, frankly.
Yeah.
And then they give notes, and everybody talks after, and at 11 o'clock that night, in the old days, they'd throw a script at your door. Now they PDF you a script, and they go, we've rewritten the thing, and then you come in next day and re-rehearse. And then you do that until like the Friday, and then you do it in front of a couple of live audiences who they excruciatingly keep over time.
But honestly, it's so cool because there's a lot.
I'm not a fan of the sitcom, frankly. I mean, I don't.
You've been in many, right? You've been Home Improvement.
I remember. I've been in films and stuff. I mean, I've been in Home Improvement and Seinfeld and this and that. But the sitcom form is, especially when you're a guest star and you come in, it's kind of unforgiving.
Oh, really?
If you're a regular on a sitcom, it's a much better gig.
Oh, that's interesting. But I was going to say, it's like, I mean, there's a lot of character actors that do guest spots here and there, but you literally have been in these classic scenes. I mean, that Seinfeld scene, I'm not the episode, but the scene with him with a cigarette in his mouth and drinking, that's just such a classic. I think of that scene all the time.
It was a lucky moment. I mean, it was a very fortunate moment because I was told by what's his name, Curb Your Enthusiasm,
Larry David.
Said, "John, whatever you do not break up because Michael's going to do stuff. You just have no idea. We have no idea."
I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Again, I tell this story a fair bit, but the truth of the matter is, I think the cameras were all downstage left to me, and Michael was here right to me. So what I did was I had put my inside right cheek between my teeth, and I just bit down and kept myself. So you can see, if you watch it, sometimes you can see my my chin flex a little bit because what I'm doing is biting down on my inside cheek to not fucking laugh.
Yeah.
And that night when I went home, I'd like taken a chunk out of my cheek. But Michael Richards, I loved working with him. I thought this guy.
Yeah.
And, I really felt sad when that whole didn't happen several years ago.
Yeah.
Because didn't deserve it. I mean,
it doesn't reflect him as a person. It reflects him in a moment. That's the way I see it.
Stupid choice. And
it was. I saw you at the Laugh Factory when I was on stage. My friend was hosting the show that night, and I guess he just had a bad night. But now everybody's got their phones out now, right?
That's the thing.
They're recording you all the time now, so
it lives on forever. I mean,
this is every night at Second City. I worked on the main stage for 5-6 years. I forget exactly. My brother and I did the math. It's like 12,000 shows or whatever the frig.
Wow.
But I mean, I toured for 3 years. But when we did suggestions every night, we take occupations and famous sayings and this and that. And invariably, on any given night, we would get either one or both of these suggestions: abortion and cancer. Every fucking night. Occupation, abortionist. Cancer. Can we have something you might face in your life? And invariably, the third rails of comedy, you cannot do anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not kidding you guys. I mean, you ask any improv group and you go out on any night in front of any audience, you're going to get either one or both of those suggestions if you were long enough. It's the weirdness of the audience, right? So my last night at Second City, and we never do a scene about abortion or cancer. So my last night at Second City, you get to choose any scene you want to do in the improv set because it's your last night and you're the big star and you're saying goodbye to John Kapelos or whatever, or John Kapelos, whatever we're going to say it. So I'm at Second City and I say, okay, this is my last night. I said, first scene, call it AC. AC, what's that? It's based on two of your suggestions. Just put AC up, right? So we begin the scene, and there's a man pacing the floor, right? Lights come up, hospital waiting room, man pacing the floor. Door opens, guy comes in with a white suit. He goes, oh, and man goes, oh, Dr. McKinnon. Is everything okay? And the man goes, doctor goes, yes, just want to let you know, Mr. Magnatis, that the abortion was successful, but the baby would have died anyway because it had cancer.
Oh my God.
We took out the lights and the audience booed and hissed for about 3-4 minutes, right? Like, oh, ooh. Based on two of your suggestions. And the lights came up and I'm standing stage and I said, listen, I've worked here for 8 years and every night I get those suggestions. Don't you ever suggest them. Those were based on your suggestions.
And, but you were able to make a skit out of it. You wanted to, that was your swan song.
That was one of my swan songs. But I mean, but sometime with the Greeks, I did this thing where I was supposed to show up at a fundraiser, and I showed up in character. And I go, "This Mr. John Kapelos, he's a big actor." And I had my headshot, and everything, and I was dressed, and I had hair then. And I did this comb over, and I put on this really bad suit, and I patted myself out, and I go, my name is Nikos Manasiotis, and I represent the Hapa Club of Caparelli, Greece, and this John Kapelos is a shame. He comes out, he says, God damn it, he makes fun of the Greek people. And they were this talk, it was a live phone-in fundraiser on television, right? And they didn't know what to do, and they thought I was really pissed off. I ripped up my headshot, and I said, never go to Second City to see him. He is not funny. He is bad for the Greeks. He says this and that. And I left, and they were so upset, and then they realized that I had punked them, as I guess it became known as.
John, you do that too well.
Yeah. It's perfect.
It's
Well,
John
but the Greeks,
Kapelos.
I mean, the Greeks really hate being made fun of.
Dude, trust me. I put one of my skits up, John, on YouTube. And I swear to God, they're writing things. Rehodro malaka. You fat malaka. Making fun. You American Canadian guruni. They just shit about. I fucking laugh.
My God.
I think that's my friend goes, don't you get mad? I go, it's hilarious because they don't get it's a joke.
Well, that's the thing. Like, comedy is comedy, and comedy offends sometimes. Comedy, makes you uncomfortable, and at least you guys can take that and roll with it, which shows that you also have a good sense of humor and emotional maturity. I think would be a good a description, right?
I mean, we all grew up making fun of each other, right? As Greeks,
Yes, yeah, but Forty, you're right. But John's right when you do something, even a Gary, I'm still laughing at the shit he did. When you do something like that, they get irate. They still get mad. Like my uncle, why don't you go get a job, bruh? Go get a job. I go, have a job. Go get a job, bruh. You want me to get a fucking job? I have one.
That's amazing. Oh,
but John, you were in a film that I really liked, and it was a gem. With the film was called Nothing in Common with Jackie Gleason and Tom Hanks. I've talked about that film. It's about a relationship between a father and a son, right? And it was early in Tom Hanks' career.
And he just done, I think, Bachelor Party or something. So he was just, one forgets that both Robin Williams and Tom Hanks were these guys that kind of broke the mold insofar as you didn't come out of sitcoms and become movie stars in them days.
Right.
Yeah.
And both of them, of course, exceeded, their wildest expectations, blah, blah. But Tom and Gary Marshall, that was a great experience. Tom's a phenomenal guy, period.
Let me ask you, has there ever been a time, because this happens, I know, was there ever something that you unexpectedly stumbled into and were pleasantly surprised by the result? Sometimes you go to read for something and then they give you something else to read, and then it's like, oh, I didn't expect this. That which happens, when you walk into a room, they see you and they go, oh no, he's the detective or he's the judge or whatever. Has it ever happened in your career because I'm sure people are going to be asking, I know that you come from the school of being prepared, right? So sometimes you go in to read for something and then the guys are talking and Dirk goes, hey, John, we have a better role for you to do.
Well, I did two parts in a movie many, many years ago called Head Office, and that happened spontaneously. And that was kind of fun. That was a movie that Ken Finkelman directed.
Right.
And with Judge Reinhold and Rick Moranis. And it's got a hell of a cast. Eddie Albert. It's not it's kind of an uneven movie, but in a sense, it's sort of about corporate big business. It's a little bit ahead of its time. And I played two parts in that quite spontaneously. One of the more fun casting experiences I had was when I read for the movie Roxanne. I read for a lot of different parts. And then I read, then one of the more pleasant casting experiences I had where I never got cast in the damn movie was I read for like 10 parts in Midnight come on, John. With De Niro and...
Midnight Run.
Midnight Run.
Midnight Run with Charles Grodin.
I guess Midnight Express. That's harsh.
No. It's okay, John. It's okay. We all suffer from COVID brain. All of us. Don't worry about it.
No, Midnight Run. And I spent, to the extent of which I spent a day with De Niro reading about 3 parts.
Wow.
And that is a thrill because Robert De Niro was the reason I got into acting, period.
Oh, wow.
I just love the guy. And
what a great film. With Charles Grodin.
And I sadly didn't, do it. And I reread Charles Grodin's show up his biography recently, and he sounded like he had a difficult time doing the movie. De Niro, De Niro takes his stunts and stuff very seriously, but he's a sweet man, Mr. De Niro. Difficult as far as
incredible. Well, I mean, your resume is so huge. Like, I would imagine, like, you never lost a part ever, because how do you have time to
I lose a lot of parts. I probably, get 20% of what I auditioned for.
Wow.
That's pretty good. And that's pretty good, actually, because it's funny. A lot of people think the success is your tenacity and your talent. But I think what a lot of people, guys, what they don't realize sometimes is that, like, I mean, being with De Niro all day in that film, I mean, there's many times you don't know why. It's not even about your talent.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's about your look. And I mean, when I saw, like, recently, I saw, it's so weird. So I was in Australia, and I'm at the hotel about 3 years ago, and I see an episode
like that. It's a real country.
It's a real country. I say this now, John, because it's like it's part of the Commonwealth. And I saw an episode of Forever Night that you were in, and it was like, because in those countries, a lot of the shows that we don't maybe see anymore, they're being shown in South Africa and in Sweden and those other places, right? So if I ever see a friend of mine, I want to call them up and say, by the way,
it's like when I went to Greece in 1970 and I saw Mannix, and it was dubbed, Peggy Lipton, his black secretary, was speaking in perfect Greek. And when did she learn how to speak Greek? I was so naive. It's like, oh, she speaks Greek.
And Mannix was such a great show too. I see it on I hear it Comfort TV. It's on the
but I mean, how like so Foti and I, we're not performers, we're not actors, we're nowhere near that. So you and Angelo,
we're bullshit artists.
Yeah. So you and Angelo, like, how does it feel? I mean, this is directed to you, John. Like, how does it feel that, like, there's probably not one place on earth that, like, somebody has not seen you in something, like, whether it's like going to the movies or like late at night they're flipping through the channels and you're like on this show, or like just like somewhere somehow you're connected to so much in people's popular cultural life. It's like, it's amazing.
All I have to say is I want to keep on doing it.
God bless you.
The thing is, you just want to keep on working. I mean, I'm proud of it. I love it. It's I certainly I'm certainly, it's what I want and what I wanted. I mean, everybody wants to be in a film world. I mean, you asked me about let's say the Breakfast Club or something, and like the fact of the matter is that John Hughes wrote a great character and is sort of the shoe fit.
Yeah.
Can I ask you very quickly? So did you just meet John Hughes in an audition and then he took a shine to you, or did you guys know each other, or like how did it come about that you were in, as far as I know, 3 John Hughes movies and 3 huge?
I was actually in 4. I was in Ferris Bueller, but we cut out the sequence.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
And then. Yeah, no, it was as you said it. I met him and he took a shine to me. I did an audition, and there were a couple of things that were going on with John. Is that he really wanted to make films, right? Mm-hmm. And he had a nice fat check from Hollywood, and they really were putting a lot of money behind him. And he had worked at Lampoon, and he had a huge vote of confidence. But the other thing is he wanted to make films in Chicago.
Yeah.
So he embraced Chicago performers. He embraced the culture. He embraced the Midwest. Yeah. If anything at that time, I mean, the one thing Chicago is, it's not New York, and it's not Boston. Boston had the proposition, but New York is a really stuck-up place. It's a lot more small-minded than one would realize in terms of the theater and other things. Just quite frankly, it's a wonderful Broadway and this and that, but Chicago is a place where people actually really supported place like Second City. But now things have changed apparently, because Second City's been sold, but that's another story. But so for us to, Hughes really sort of embraced that Midwestern ethic. He was from Detroit, and
like thinking back on it, I can't even imagine a John Hughes movie not associated with Chicago. It's just like standard now for at this point. Thinking back all these years, it's like John Hughes, Chicago, and John Kapelos is going to be a character in here.
Well, the thing is with John is that again, I mean, I just think that he, I'm revisiting the same thing. He just didn't talk down to the
yeah. And I mean, these were iconic movies. If you think of 80s, like there's a handful of movies.
True.
And
it's true.
And I challenge anybody in the world to think of 80s movies and not have a John Hughes movie as one of those 80s movies.
No, I mean, and that's, and they can't take that away from me. And, not to get sentimental or sad about it, but I wish my father had seen it. But
yeah.
It's good. It's good to have success. It's in itself. It's not it's what you do with it, right? It's what you do.
Hey, John, do you think I think you're from the school. Is it better to be famous or to keep working? I would think working.
I think keep working. I mean, as I said to a friend, we were writing a script, and I said, if you expect yourself to be in the headlines, and you have to expect yourself to be fish wrapping the next day, and that's just the fact of the matter is you have to take the down with the up, and if you can't, you're fucked. I mean, and if you buy your own PR, if you look in the newspaper and believe that's you, then you're John Belushi. You're somebody that. Is trying to live up to you become a Macy's Day Parade float of yourself, and that's when you die.
So true.
But I mean, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna come at you, John, from my perspective. Okay, just think of it from me. I don't know anything. Blah blah blah. You are iconic. You are a character in so much of my upbringing, so much of what I held dear to myself. The second Angelo told me that you were going to be on the show, I got on the phone with my sisters, my older sisters, and I was like, "You're not going to believe who's going to be on."
Speak to you?
What?
They still speak to you?
Yeah, because we're having you on the show. That's why I'm like, we're going to have John Kapelos, and instantly they started rattling off like 100 things you've done. Like we were big fans. Like you were like. The Greek guy, you were the character that stole these scenes.
They have to send the money directly to me from that.
I gotta say, John, I've never seen.
What I say to my family, it's a personal residual check.
John, I've never seen Adi this talkative in one of our interviews. That's why I'm going back.
This is.
I'm happy that you're. This is great.
I told Angelo, you guys don't even need to be on here. Let me talk to John because I love this guy. Like it's such a big part. Like X-Files, Home Improvement, Seinfeld, 16 Candles, Weird Science. Like these are like you can't define me without talking about these shows and movies. And you were part of those. You were connected to those. To me, that's amazing. And then you talk about your sister and your brother, your family, your siblings. Being like academic, like, okay, but I'm forever. You have no idea who the hell I am. I forever am going to be like honored by like what you've done. And I will be talking about you. And like my sister, we talk about you and your movies, not to mention, and this is like just random, not to mention that one of my best friends, you are the doppelganger. You are the spitting image of his dad. So another reason was like we were like
heart condition.
you literally are the absolute twin of my best friend's dad, and like so all these things merged into our like lives, and it's like.
Well, you could be related to your friend's dad. He's from Boston. His family's from Boston anyway.
I mean, he might be. The last name is Politis. I don't know if you're related to
Politis. So that bastard owes me €50.
Hey, John, before because
Glifada, he was drunk.
John, you did a special screening during the LAGF. You did this thing through your, I think it's through your production company, Carpuzzi. It was kind of like a talk show with a woman. I came with my wife.
Commentary.
It was great. You guys, you had to see this thing that John produced himself. And it was, I loved it. And we had a full house and we came to see it. And I really liked it. It was,
Angelo, are you doing movies now or what?
No, I mean, parts here and there. I played some weirdos in a couple of films. I do some stuff. In the past. Mostly stand-up.
I heard you're doing the Jim Belushi story.
Well, you know, I what happens is that people say I sound just like him. That I sound like Jim.
I tease you. Yeah.
But Jim Belushi, I heard his mom's Greek. I know the dads are Albanian.
Well, when you see the movie 16 Candles, when I'm coming up the aisle, she's right there and she stops me and she's actually in the movie for a moment.
Mm. Oh, really? So that was Jim and John's mom.
Yeah, she was Agnes was her name.
Right.
And she was actually a nice lady. She put up with a lot from her boys, apparently.
Oh, for sure.
and her
John.
And her husband, Adam. But I know very little about the family, except that I worked with Jim and knew John a bit. Knew Dan Aykroyd a lot more.
Oh, yeah, wow. Dan, another fellow Canadian.
Haven't seen him in years. And
let me ask you, do you
when
get
they
back
the Blues Brothers in Chicago? That was a wild time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can imagine. My God.
God. You can't. I don't think I thought I could imagine, and you couldn't because stuff happened. Ethan, anyway.
Portobello.
For another episode.
We have to bring back John another episode. Look, we've zipped through an hour with you, John, and it's been like 10 minutes.
I got to get going anyway because
no, but we're gonna go. We're so happy, John. I'm really happy. Thanks for coming on. Before we let you go, though,
I didn't come on anybody. All right.
Before we let you go.
You say I came on here, like this is the Me Too time, guys. I don't roll that way with anybody, not even with Greek boys anymore. Anymore.
Well, what we're gonna do, John, before we let you go, and thanks for coming and doing this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, but how much you're sending me the money on PayPal, right?
Venmo.
Angela's gonna Venmo it.
And you know what's funny? We do this. It's funny you say that, John. You go, "Are you my uncle? You guys making money from this?" No. Why? I go, "We're not. We don't even have a sponsor yet."
Yeah, Angela. Let me just say very quickly, my mother-in-law. Yeah. We have like this going on. We got that going on. We got this famous actor. We got this. I'm like so excited. I'm like bursting, and everybody's like so excited. And my mother-in-law's like, "¿Qué pasa, está peligroso, ne?" And I'm like, "Son of a bitch, you ruined everything."
It's all about the money.
Give you a buzzkill.
But anyway, go ahead, Angelo.
Yeah, so before we let you go, John, Forte has just a couple of questions we do with all our guests, and then Ari takes it home. So I'll give it over to Forte now. And
yeah, thank you, Angelo. John, this has been an honor, brother. This is such a great time. We definitely would love to have you back at some point whenever you've got time. But
whenever you get a check,
we get some money.
Well, if you take crypto, we can send you some cryptocurrency.
Oh yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Me and Elon Musk.
Right. But we definitely like to ask some really cute questions, I should say, to get to know you better for our Greek audience around the world. First question, John, is
9 inches.
That's it. There you go. On to the next question.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Your favorite and least favorite Greek food growing up as a kid?
Well, liver, anything liver. Liver. My favorite Greek food was spanakopita. Not spanakopita, but not spanakopita, but spanakorizo.
Spanakorizo, right?
Excellent.
Popeye right there. Excellent. And you mentioned, quite a bit about your mom and your dad and growing up in a Greek household. Any sayings that your parents would say to you that stuck to you as a kid growing up that you still remember? Any famous lines or sayings?
My mother used to say to me, "Are you a Greek god or a goddamn Greek?" And in her Boston accent, I remember.
Oh, I love it.
Are you a Greek god or a goddamn Greek? And Georgie, it was always George, get down from there. That was good. Get down from there. There was one thing that my parents would say, and I've been thinking about it recently. My mother would say, "Okra kekseros."
Oh,
You know that
Oiki
sounds
kekseros.
familiar. What is it?
Exi kekseros.
Something.
Exi kekseros.
I think that's it.
Yeah, 6 and
sounds
dry.
When my mother was really, really pissed off, she would go stravoxonet, blind them. Is that
Yeah.
Stravoxilo.
like when I heard that one? It sounded totally biblical. My father was a fancy. He had a lot of sayings. My father.
I'm sure we can definitely bring those out in another segment for sure.
Sorry, that's it.
But as Greeks, John, you know, we're definitely, as a culture, we're definitely superstitious. Any superstition that you still maybe live by as a Greek?
Tuso.
Yeah,
That's classic.
Yeah.
You know, any superstition? Not really.
Do you have any ritual like before an audition or something?
No, I try not. I try to avoid that.
I agree with you with that.
My only ritual is preparation.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, great.
When I did a play last year, and I know myself, like, if I'm about to go on stage, I can be my own worst enemy. And I say to myself, if I know it, well, you know it. If you know it, you know it.
Nice.
Good. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, John, thank you so much for that time.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. And despite the fact that Ange was part of this, I enjoyed myself.
Well, listen, we want everybody out there watching, listening. This is going to be live tomorrow, video, podcast, everywhere you could listen to podcasts, everywhere you can watch videos on the app. I personally want to say an absolute pleasure, Mr. John Kapelos, somebody who is like part of like, I consider you part of my life because like so many aspects of my growing up have involved you in some way or another. You are the first Greek guy I ever saw, like, to be famous and to like bring Greek into the mainstream. Your characters were amazing every step of the way. You're a scene stealer. You're awesome, and that comes straight from my heart. And Angelo could vouch for me because he heard me. I was like freaking out. An honor to meet you. An honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
You've made my day and my week. And you've given me enough ego boost for a long time.
Please come back on the show. Please give us more stories. We love every single minute of it. If you're ever in DC or Boston, let us know. We have a big Greek family that is going to take care of you. And we're going to feed you. We're gonna revel in your stories. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody out there for watching and listening. Thank you to Foti. Thank you to Angelo. As always, Angelo, you nailed it with this guest. Like, amazing.
Thanks, John, for coming on. Thanks, John. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, John.
John Kapelos, the Bohunk. We are honored to have you with us. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Take care, gentlemen.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.